All right, I'll say greetings this evening of your time as you create time to exist. How are you all? Oh, thank you very much. Allow me to begin this interaction with the following title. Point of power. Your particular society, as do, shall we say, several other physical societies, tend to, shall we say, create time in a particularly fascinating way, whereby you have what you call before, during, and after. Now, interestingly enough, though you have a sense of what has come before and what it is that, shall we say, as you say, is to come, you always only ever actually exist or experience the moment you call right now. So what this means is that in a now moment, you recreate a past. You project a future. And in that sense, then maintain a relationship and a vested interest in that sense to your relationship to the past and the future in such a way where many times you neglect what is happening right now. Understand that although things or events sequentially from a set of steps from a past may lead to a present or now moment, that is where the relationship ends. There is no causal, in that sense, relationship in the present from the past. There is no effect that the past can have on the present until you say or you determine that it does. For in that now moment, you then create the effect from a quote-unquote seeming past, but you create it right here, right now. So therefore, yes, you feel the effects seemingly of a past, but it is not from the past itself having a hold on you. It is from your interpretation in the moment, your attitude in the moment, and ultimately your actions in the moment. For if those actions reflect a high degree of belief that the past does, in that sense, affect the present, then you create an effect that seems to provide the evidence that it does, that seems to continuously provide a rationale that the past does affect the present. But that is merely something that you do in the now moment. Therefore, the now moment is always your point of power. For since you always ever exist in the now, it is always eternally right now. You can always change your reality right now, for there is no other time. When you are willing to begin to look at that, you are not remembering a past that is quote unquote still there, but recreating the past from the present right now. You will understand that right now is all that matters. Right now is the point at which you make any determination or relationship to a past or a future. So right now is the time that you can change that idea. Your particular manifestation, physically speaking, of your reality results generally from 3 steps. Number 1, in a given now moment from a given set of circumstances, you have an interpretation. In general, you will ascribe a positive or negative interpretation to a particular given situation. Now, understand the situation in and of itself is a blank set of props with no built-in meaning. You assign the meaning. And if it is something that is generally societally labeled bad, and you then buy into that and automatically label it negative, then you cannot help in that sense but get a negative effect from that neutral symbol. But the opposite is also true. It is always your choice in any given now moment to remember that the symbol that the event has really no built-in meaning until you assign it. And that perhaps, yes, there are certain aspects of a given situation which may on the surface seem negative. That is not the only thing or the only message that the circumstance has built into it. For when we say all situations are neutral, that neutrality is expressed as 100% potentiality for a negative manifestation, but also 100% potentiality for a positive. And this means that are you to ascribe a positive meaning to something which you heretofore have ascribed a negative meaning to, you cannot help but get a different effect out of it. For in, again, each now moment, what you do is interpret from that blank set of props, whether you, in that sense, will choose, perhaps sometimes not consciously, but now we are speaking of doing it consciously, to label it negative or positive. Now, we had said that it, in that sense, is in 3 steps. Step 1 in each now moment is your interpretation. Once you interpret something as either perhaps negative or positive, you then assume an attitude with that particular interpretation as a foundation. So therefore, again, to extrapolate, if you give a negative interpretation, you in general will assume a negative attitude or posture. If you give a positive interpretation, then in that sense, you are more likely to assume a positive attitude. And lastly, you then act, you then do in the moment, right now, something with that interpretation and that attitude as a foundation. And it is ultimately the doing of that thing right now that creates your reality, that manifests your reality physically, because it is the actions that are the movers in that sense in your physical world right now. Therefore, you always in any given now moment have the opportunity, have the advantage to understand that you get to choose the interpretation. You get to choose. For regardless of whether or not, in that sense, you do consciously decide to choose or not, choose you will. Though perhaps if it is from a negative perspective, the choice will be somewhat automatic and unconscious. What we are discussing is the waking up in the now moment, the only time you ever exist. In any given situation, when you find yourself with, shall we say, an outdated interpretation, an interpretation that, oh no, here it comes again, for example, is a negative interpretation, presupposing that that is, in a sense, happening to you rather than from you. And when in that sense you say, oh no, here it comes, that is an interpretation with a negative, shall we say, backhand, and therefore can only result in a negative attitude, and then your actions will subtly or perhaps blatantly then manifest or represent that negative attitude. You can always, in that sense, take back your point of power. You can always, in that sense, create a, shall we say, gap or a lag or a pause between the interpretation and the action. For again, if your interpretation is, shall we say, negative, and in that sense you assume a negative attitude, but you then do nothing, you cannot then get the negative manifestation. It is the doing stage in that sense that creates the reality. So therefore, this gives you the liberty, the license to think whatever you wish, as long as you do not automatically then act with those thoughts as a foundation. Therefore, you can now begin to reinterpret according to preference. You can now understand, all right, something perhaps which in the past I have labeled negative is occurring. Obviously, I can see what is negative about it. In the past, when I have interpreted it this way, had my attitude perform my actions, I have only gotten a negative result out of it. Therefore, I have absolutely nothing to lose by at least placing a pause before I do anything. And giving myself the opportunity in that sense to reinterpret from the perspective of a creator, of a conscious manifestor. And you can always reinterpret something which you had initially assigned a negative meaning or label to by asking yourself the simple wild card question. Wild card meaning you can pull it out of your deck anytime. How does this serve me exactly the way it is? In what way is this symbol that I have created of assistance to me? What is it, for instance, forcing me to look at? What is it, for instance, indicating about what I still may believe in a limiting sense? You can always, by simply asking, how is this of service to me exactly the way it is, get at least some negative, shall we say, alternative option. In other words, the positive. Some positive interpretation. For if you look at how it serves you, or what it, shall we say again, forces you in that sense to look at, you can then simply consciously derive that service or consciously choose to look at what you have created a symbol to force you to look at because you wish to look at it, and then no longer need the symbol to prod you from behind. The now moment is truly your point of power, for it is eternal. It always was right now. Never was there a time where you could say it is not right now. And in that sense, so that shall by extension continue. It will always eternally be now. So therefore, there is no past that you need dig up and in that sense be responsible for integrating every aspect of it in a tenuous and tortuous manner. For when in that sense you simply begin to derive your actions and your creatorhood from the now moment, you automatically will create any opportunity to bring up any limiting belief, which, yes, you may have bought into in your past, but it is not inherently the past itself that is important. It is the fact that you give yourself the opportunity to look at beliefs which no longer serve you. And you always will give yourself that opportunity. One of the greatest signs or signals that you are creating in a given now moment, a particular belief which no longer serves you, is what you call negative emotion. Emotion itself is always a direct result of a belief system with no exceptions. No exceptions. Therefore, whatever you feel, you always feel because you believe something. Therefore, anytime you have a negative emotion in the now moment, right now, you can always ask yourself, if you do not choose to just automatically from that negative interpretation, assume a negative attitude, perform negative actions, and simply get the negative reality, if you place a pause in there, you can always interpret, what must I believe right now? Right now. From what is happening right now. Not yesterday, not last year, not when I was a child. Right now. What must I believe to be feeling this? And if you are honest, you will always come up with a limiting belief. A belief which perhaps you will say, well, yes, I do believe that. And boy, is that dated. That no longer applies to who I choose to be. But now that I have found the belief, now that I have drummed it up, it is no longer even important how or when I created it. What is important is now I know I have this belief. And when you own the belief, you can change it. And that is the only way you can change a belief. You cannot change a belief by assuming the new belief in denial of the old belief. The old belief will always, in that sense, subtly affect your actions and through the filtration of those actions, bring itself back to the quote-unquote surface. You cannot escape your true beliefs. But the good news is that once you do accept them, acknowledge them, own them, you can change them. When in that sense you believe something, that, shall we say, lays down the blueprint for how you will interpret it and for the attitude that you will then assume and the actions that you will then take. Therefore, you always act as though you believe something. So once you acknowledge the belief that you no longer prefer, you can then extrapolate how you have been acting because you have that belief. And you can see that it was those actions that gave the effect of the limiting belief in your life. This is half the key to changing to the preferred belief. For this, in that sense, lays down for you how you create with that old limiting belief. You act as though you believe it, and those actions put into place physically the reality. Therefore, once you acknowledge a belief in the now moment that you no longer prefer, you may use the tool of your imagination rather than as an escape, rather than as a fantasy, the tool of your imagination to create a new blueprint, a new template, a new model. And briefly, simply as follows, close your eyes, picture the new preferred you. Picture in that sense the you in that sense prefer to be with the new belief you already have. And picture it until you can feel what that new belief feels like. For anything you believe will always again result in an emotion. And when you consciously choose to believe something and invoke it, speak it, state it, if you do it with conviction in that moment in isolation, you will create the feeling of the new belief. And when you feel that, you will then be able to picture, if you will, how you would act if you truly believe the new belief. You will see that those actions will always differ from the actions you have generally been doing to get the negative result. And you will see in that sense right in front of you, in the now moment, options, rather than automatic tendency to, shall we say, commit and act with a negative foundation. You now have options. Here is how the old negative me would act. Here is how the new preferred me would act. And I will venture to guess that side by side, the preferred you, the new blueprint you in your imagination, the actions that you performs will simply be far easier to choose. For now that you have given yourself the option, it is far more representative of who you wish to be. And therefore, by simply acting as the new you that your imagination has laid down as a blueprint, in acknowledgement of the old belief, you now create the reality, the effect right now of the new belief in the same way that you already created the old. So there is nothing in that sense new to learn here. Simply a slight shift in perspective of how to apply what you already flawlessly apply in your creations. And the fact that, again, you always exist right now means that any now moment, you can take back your power. You can have that moment be the fulcrum for your point of expressing your power according to preference. Perhaps we can, in that sense, summarize and simplify what we have said. Before you act, before you do anything, particularly when what you are about to do comes from a negative foundation, if you will always at least provide yourself with one positive alternative from your imagination, from the referential, preferential you that you create within your imagination, I again will venture to guess that you will always find it far simpler to do the thing that is, again, representative of who you wish to be. And merely the providing of the option, your willingness to take the action step of providing that option, will have that new positive perspective, that new positive approach and action be far more attractive and make it that much simpler to choose and implement than the old. And one by one, as your actions now reflect the new preferred you, again, in acknowledgement of the old beliefs, not denial, one by one, the results of your life, the results of your actions begin to transform your life right now, immediately, across the board. When you decide to change in that way, and that is simply all there is to it, the simple decision, I wish to change from this to this. You may understand that in making the decision that you wish to change, because now is the only time that ever exists, in that now moment, you have changed already. The mere conception of the idea of the change is the same as being the change. Now you can continue then to create a continuity with the old you and make it seem like a passing thing. Or in that sense, you can just decide, I have changed because I say so, because I desire to, because I know I create right now, and right now I decide to change. Then secondly, trust in that change. See where in that sense you are not trusting in it and provide the alternative of trusting in it. And lastly, act as though you trust you have changed. And any given now moment that you are willing to do this in this way, you then transform completely, immediately, and wholly, to the degree that you are willing to accept that you can. And since you make all the rules, it's up to you. Therefore, change in a sense can be something which is a lengthy process. Can be in that sense something whereby you analyze every aspect of your past. Obviously, that also works, and we are not saying that what we are saying is any better. However, it is another way, and perhaps works faster if indeed we are understanding correctly that it is the desire of you, both individually and collectively as a society, do desire to change immediately. And that immediate change can be expressed from the simple decision to change. Again, the trust that I have changed and not allowing anything to provide contrary evidence, reinterpreting it, and then acting as though you trust you have changed. That is all there is to it. All the stuff that you have analyzed from your past, again, if it is significant, if in that sense it truly does limit you, it will come up. But you will not have to find it. It will find you. And generally, once again, in the form of a negative emotion or a negative interpretation. Your point of power is eternal. You are multidimensional and eternal beings. You are expressing yourself finitely as physical beings right now for particular reasons. But your sense of your eternalness can be, shall we say, at least approached from the perspective that it is always forever right now. That no matter when, it is now. Never was there a moment that you existed in your life when it was not right now. Therefore, this is your consistent access to your creatorhood, your direct access to your creatorhood. When you spend your now moment recreating a non-preferred past, projecting a non-preferred future, you in general do so at the cost of what is right in front of your face. Right now in front of your face. And if you are willing to ground yourself back into the now moment, the form that takes is when something comes up, asking yourself, well, right now is the only time I ever exist. Right now is the only time I can ever act from. The thing that I am looking at right now, is it something I can do something about right now? If the answer is yes, go right ahead. If the answer is no, then it is a distraction. Then, because you cannot act upon it and are placing attention upon it, you are looking at it at the cost of what is right there. So if you ask yourself this question and the answer is no, I cannot do anything about it, push that aside. Then look at what is right here, right now. That is how you reground yourself into the moment in any given moment with that simple question. For you can only act on certain options in a given moment in the way that you lay down the succession in that sense, so to speak, of now moments. And therefore, should you place your attention and concentrate on what you can act upon, there will always be a relevant set of choices. And from those choices, there will always be something which excites you, which gives you more passion, more desire than the others. And if you are willing from what is available, not from what is not, from what is available in any given moment, to use that barometer within you of your excitement, of your gravitation toward, of your passion for, as a criteria to choose from what is available, you will then always express the choice that is directly indicative of the choice of, perhaps you can say, your higher self, or the choice that is representative of what is most you in this life. For excitement itself is the vibratory energy that tells you what is most you. That is why it excites you and nobody else. It is the sign that many of you have been asking for. Oh, I need a sign. The sign is your excitement. Many times something very exciting comes along and you say, not right now, I'm looking for my sign. But that is your sign. That is why you feel that way. Uniquely, you feel that way. Therefore, your point of power can always be acted upon in a positive way by providing at least one positive alternative, by recreating the referential, preferential you to do so. This is always immediately available. And though at first it may seem as a series of steps, your willingness to even approach it in this way in and of itself is an action and a statement to the universe, and will then reorient your entire reality toward that preference. And the process, so to speak, will become simply automatic, whereby you automatically and effortlessly will provide to yourself the positive alternatives representative of who you now choose to be, rather than perhaps somebody that everyone said you should be. You get to decide who you wish to be. Even if you decide that you wish to be what everyone else says you should be. That is still your choice. But only you can know. Only you can know if it excites you. And only you, if you are willing to act from what is available on the thing that excites you with integrity, only you can create your life in a positive way. It is very simple. It is that simple. Now it will be up to you to allow it to be that simple, or to add as many intervening steps as you feel you need in order to validate the change. But ultimately, that is all change is anyway. A decision on your part to change, and then either trusting in that change and getting the results of it, or trusting in what you perceive to be a process that then results in your validating the change. So it's the same result. You still finally validate the change, and it is the validation of the change that makes the change, not the process. So we are not denigrating processes, and we understand in that sense that they can be valuable. but are simply suggesting that it is, in a sense, an elaborate game that you play to give yourself permission to say, all right, I've done enough work. I can now give myself permission to change. Here is the homework to prove it. And that is one way to go about it. But it takes more time. And if you wish for your reality to be transformed right now, right here, go right ahead. It is up to you. It is your point of power. In exchange for your willingness to open up within you the many doors, to break down the walls separating yourselves into many parts, and begin now to unfold into your wholeness, into your totality. We thank you and express our unconditional love to you for your willingness to share this with us. It brings us great joy in that sense to share with your experience, to relish your particular perspectives. For every creation, every aspect of creation itself is unique and has something unique to offer. We understand this, and in that sense, see everyone that we interact with, for the societies that have every one's, a gift of creation itself. And it is our extreme pleasure to unwrap you, and in that sense, relish the contents that you choose to share with us. Therefore, in exchange for your willingness to do so, I ask you now, how may I be of service to you? Shedding. Ace.
Elan.
Ace.
According to your introduction, it's been an exploration that we've been going through and I've been seeing, is that in action, in relationship to other people, that you pull back.
Now, I assume you do not mean me when you say you pull back.
No, I didn't.
All right.
No. When one steps back and says, what is the preferred way? How does this serve me, and how would I like to interact? As you're interacting with people and we're day to day being in relationship, that we have set beliefs about how other people are interacting with us. Oh, there that comes again. They're invalidating me. Where's the belief?
Well, that will occur whether or not they are invalidating you. So that is why your only, shall we say, option is to exercise your point of power and perhaps ask, why would I believe, or what must I believe to think that one, in that sense, would invalidate me, and also that I could then buy into it and produce the effect of feeling invalidated. For no one can truly invalidate anyone else without their participation.
Right, that's what I've been saying, is that it only takes one person in a relationship to break that cycle.
Which makes things quite a bit more simple with the complexities of the relationships upon your planet. Yes.
Yes, it does.
It only takes one end. In that sense, you can say it is perhaps a game of ping pong. And if you do not return the ball, there is simply no ball to play with. Therefore, it is always, shall we say, from your side of the table, your option to simply catch the ball and decide not to play quite in that way.
Right, and providing them with another option for themselves.
Ace, and in that sense, if there is in that way a particular interpretation from your end that they, meaning the other individuals, may have a specific intention, it is only to your benefit and the benefit of that individual to ask them. For then you can, in that sense, get their particular perspective and then decide, at least having their accurate perspective, how you wish to act or react. But the difficulty in many of these cases is not necessarily from what is said between individuals, but what is not said. Therefore, your willingness to open up, your willingness to say, I have felt this, therefore it deserves, in that sense, to be brought up. I deserve, in that sense, to honor that if I feel this, it is something that is relevant to me. I shall discuss it. I shall find out. I shall get the feedback from the individual. rather than a hesitation that you will be viewed in a negative way for exploring and being open.
Yeah, very often it's an opportunity to examine your beliefs about about what other people might think of you and speaking about it.
Ace. Now again, if they do not think that of you, then all well and good, you have settled that. But if they actually do think that then gives you the new opportunity to decide, will I buy into it? That is simply their opinion. Do I believe what they're saying? If you believe what they're saying, you may feel bad. But if you in that sense decide that is not relevant to who you are, you will not feel in that sense a negative emotion. So the negative emotion from your end is your indication that on some level you are buying into that belief. Does that assist?
Certainly does. Thank you very much.
Is that all?
That's it.
We thank you. Shutting.
Elan,
Ace.
I have two areas of question tonight, and each one may challenge somewhat your computer database.
Oh, all right. How exciting. Number one.
Several months ago, I was watching a morning talk show on TV hosted by Joan Rivers. She had 5 or 6 young people there, maybe 14 to 16 years old, and each one was outstanding in some particular career skill, whether it was music or science or something. But one particular young man from England just caught me so strong in that he seemed to have extreme wisdom and intelligence. And he had taken over his father's business, which was failing, and was turning it into a very successful operation.
Oh, all right. You will find a juxtaposition between what you call the teacher and the learner quite often these days. If in that sense you are willing to see that those roles are quite arbitrary and everyone is actually both, you may find many individuals you heretofore found could only benefit from your own knowledge actually have quite a bit to teach you. Do proceed.
Okay. This young man said many amazing things, to me at least, and they asked him what he saw as his career, and he said, my mission on this planet is to help straighten out the major issues that face this earth. And he was very serious and struck me as extremely competent to go about doing this and so forth. So I guess my first question is, can you yet identify this person in your database?
We can identify with the energy enough to perhaps answer a few questions. Do proceed.
Okay. Well, my first question was, can you identify whether his energy is really going to play a major part in leading this planet to do good?
It is our immediate perception that yes, it will.
Okay.
Simply the determination and the conviction and the lack of hesitation in and of itself tells you that.
Now, I want to switch over to the other area of question.
Oh, number 2. All right.
About a year ago or so, in answer to my request about the status of my parents, who had both died in a traffic accident in January '64, I was told that my father had reincarnated as a male roughly 14 years ago. Now, that was about a year ago. Okay. And of course, that was all that was given to me at that time. Can you tell me, is he living in England at this point?
Now, before in that sense I reply, may I ask you why you are asking? Very interesting.
Okay. This morning early on the phone, one of my long, frequent phone calls with my brother, the subject ended up that I had this idea, and the idea, when it came to me and when I verbalized it to my brother, he said, 1 moment ago, I knew you were going to say exactly that. And that idea was that this young fellow that I saw on Joan Rivers' TV show was in his previous life our father.
Ah, very interesting.
Yes.
What do you think?
Well, it fit very much my feeling and my experience with my father and his interests when he was alive, and very much fit his dissatisfaction with politics, with life on this earth as not being fair and equal to all, and on and on. And so all of this fit very well what I saw in this young man on TV.
Then we thank you in that sense for creating and in that sense maintaining and establishing that connection.
Well, I understand all things are connected, and I knew this would be connected, but of course I knew you probably wouldn't choose to really give me a specific answer as to whether my feeling was accurate.
Well, in that sense, I just have. And in that sense, will now allow you to continue to validate or invalidate, 'tis your choice, whether you, in that sense, feel this to be true. But we will simply suggest that now is the time of the taking back of your power. And the way to express that power is your willingness to trust what you know to be true for you. Your willingness to take the step of simply validating something because you feel it, because it rings true with you, will be of far more assistance to you right now. And will, in that sense, allow you to unfold that much further into your conscious creatorhood. We thank you.
When you sense any of our vibrations, are you able to sense whether one of us or all of us, but one of us is destined for greatness?
Well, in that sense, we understand that you all are. Perhaps you can say we have access to certain probable tendencies, but because you have free will and the mere rendering of a prediction, again, a probable tendency, can be enough, the information of it, to change the actual prediction. This is why, again, from our perspective, there is no such thing as a prediction of the future, but sensings of the energies available right now for all various, shall we say, parallel and alternate realities intersect in many of your now moments. So therefore, there are literally an infinite number of probable futures. You have, in that sense, a particular tendency given your course of actions right here, right now, the only time there is, a tendency toward, shall we say, some of them versus others of them. But again, this is ever changing, and your knowledge of it can be enough in that sense to have you change your actions sufficiently to change the outcome. So it is still in your court. But ultimately, since we understand that all life is an expression that expands, that evolves, that incorporates and integrates things you formerly, in that sense, chose to see as external to yourself as internal, you are all, in that sense, ultimately destined for greatness and cannot, in that sense, manifest anything else.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Oh, we thank you as well. Shedding.
Elan,
Ace.
I'm interested in your point of view on the following.
All right.
When I visualize chakras a certain way, or I visualize energy fields, or I create a white light around me or around something, or I pull down a certain color light in and through my body, does that in fact objectively exist, or is that a way of visualizing simply to help me focus my thinking?
Well, again, perhaps on some level, it would appear to objectively exist in the way that you are meaning the question. But not to make it too confusing, understand from our perspective, there is no truly such thing as an objective reality. For the moment you perceive it, it is subjective. And you, in that sense, generally draw a separation between the perceived and the perception. But our understanding is that it is all one interrelated, interconnected event that cannot be sifted or separated out to parts.
Taking this a bit further, if I perceive a non-physical being as like a white tornado, let's say, with sparkles, okay, is that an image that just allows me to identify that energy, or does that energy or does that being by its nature present that way to my senses?
Now, it can be both. But understand there are certain manifestations of energy that you would call perhaps vortexual in nature that would, in that sense, assume the pattern that you sometimes call spiral. So in that particular instance, it can be more, shall we say, literal.
Okay. And taking it just a little bit further.
All right.
If I visualize a green light around my body, let's say, am I in fact creating a light that emits the wavelength of green?
Well, in that sense, you are expressing from the white light, which contains all colors, that particular aspect of it. And were you in that sense to perhaps, again, directly address your question, have another individual sensitive to such a sight, they would perceive it in that color, again, if you did that with that conviction.
So then we do have the ability, with focused thought, to
filter the white light into its many segments, yes.
And that's what everything really is, in fact, the white light.
Well, in a sense, you are the prisms. What in that way defines you as a discrete and distinct personality is the relationship of the prism that you are that breaks down the white light of infinite creation itself to the specific manifestations you consider yourself to be. And again, as a reminder, that prism, perhaps as an analogy, can be viewed as having three sides. One side is your belief systems, the second side is your emotionality, and the third side is your mentality or thoughts. These are the prism through which you literally do
reality, actually the step down in frequency of some component of the white light.
Well, in a sense, yes, for it is of a lower vibratory frequency, but not step down qualitatively. It is only a quantitative densification that does generally take the form that you would call lower vibratory state, yes.
Now, is it necessary to understand all the mechanics of subatomic physics to bring something into physical manifestation from the white light?
Absolutely not. It is, in that sense, a matter of your truest conviction and belief system. And then also understanding that you have chosen to be in this reality, in that sense being cognizant of the choices you have made. One of the choices may have been to not express that and to experience what it feels like not to express that. But now you are in the transformational age where one of the, shall we say, possibilities in the agreements that you make with everyone else to experience certain things, these agreements are looser. And now perhaps you can decide to change your own particular relationship with the mass agreement and begin to experience different realities. But again, we remind you, and have several times, are you to be in the presence of other individuals who choose to maintain the agreement, though you may manifest something out of thin air? Those individuals choosing to remain within the agreement will simply not perceive it. They will perhaps think you picked it up or have some other explanation. So it is possible to manifest what you are saying and not be able to convince anyone else of it.
Is it possible to manifest something in a room, leave the room, and someone else walks in and just sees it there like a normal eye?
Only in that sense if they also are redefining their relationship with the mass agreement.
I don't quite understand why that would be involved in this instance. If I were to create a pencil out of thin air and place it on a desk, if someone else were to walk into the room...
Oh, all right. We understand. Perhaps they would perceive the pencil, but again would not perceive or perhaps believe that you had produced it from thin air.
That's fine. So it is possible to create objective reality through visualization of focusing of thought, step down the white light into a solid physical reality without actually understanding all the intricacies of subatomic physics.
Absolutely. But again, that is a subjective experience.
Thank you, Elan.
We thank you. Shutting.
Elan,
Ace.
I'd like to ask 2 questions on behalf of people that couldn't be here this evening.
Oh, all right. By proxy.
Thank you. My friend Martha Serrato asked, she saw a craft
Ace.
on the evening of July 13th at 9 p.m. over the Merritt Parkway in Trumbull near exit 51 and 52. She asked, was that one of your craft? And if so, was there a purpose in her seeing it at that time?
Allow us to answer question number 2 first. Yes, there was a purpose. When individuals will behold something in that sense that runs contrary to everything else they have ever seen in their lives, you may just imagine on some level there is a reason for it. In general, that reason is the beginning or the allowance of the unlocking from the rigidized, shall we say, mass agreement that we have just discussed. So in a sense, you may understand the presentation as a particular key that has allowed her in that sense to access a door, which will now result in her through curiosity, through joy, through, in that sense, the simple desire to understand what is happening, that she will now attract many new symbols, ideas, people to herself, which will allow her to begin to expand her understanding of this. In terms of question number 1, what we will share is that, yes, she did perceive an extraterrestrial craft. In terms of its identification, for now, we will abstain.
Thank you. The second question is on behalf of my sister, Susan Kroll, who met with you in private session once to help interpret her dream.
Ace.
She's continued to have dreams of extraterrestrial interaction. And her most recent dream, though, confuses her. She was pushing, someone was pushing to enter a room. She was pushing against the door to keep them out. She finally succeeded. A notice came through the door about a UFO conference in New York City coming up. And then she felt regret at having kept the door closed. And the name William Quinn and an image of a red-headed man came to her. She asks, could I ask you, does this signify still an unconscious or a subconscious fear in allowing communication with extraterrestrials, or is this completely a misinterpretation of the dream? And who is William Quinn?
Well, first of all, it does represent to some degree a fear. But far more does it represent their answer to the fear, which is, if you don't open up, we ain't coming in. And understand that that is the nature of her agreement. Nothing is forced upon her. There are no battering rams. Therefore, it is an indication that it is still up to her. Meaning that should she still on some level create the fear, she may understand that it is her choice, not from a situation being forced upon her. And she will meet that individual, though perhaps the name will be slightly different.
Okay, thank you. She also wonders, is there a way to actively release the fear?
Identify it. When she feels it, utilize what we had began this interaction by sharing. I now am feeling fear. This is her speaking. Right here, right now. First of all, I will feel it, for it is delivering a message. I wish to be quite clear in receiving the message. Therefore, I will allow the messenger to speak. I will feel this fear. Really feel it. Allow it to devolve, if you will, into abject terror. Feel it. Then ask herself, right here, right now, no past, no future, right here, right now. To be fearing with what is right in front of me, what must I believe? And the belief, in that sense, to utilize your slang liberally, will deliver itself upon a silver platter. Then she can decide what to do with it. And may find, even after transforming it, will sometimes feel fear again. But when she goes through that process, will find different beliefs, we perceive approximately 2 to 3, shall we say, major limiting beliefs, which once acknowledged and transformed by choice in joy, in love, will in that sense cessate, or shall we say, cease the effect of the fear.
We all thank you.
And you as well. We thank you all. Shutting. Ice.
Hi, Elan.
Greetings.
I have two questions. One is business and one is personal.
Oh, all right.
The personal one, I wonder if you could help me to. I had what I think is an experience with alchemy not too long ago.
Ice. And it was a literal experience. It, in that sense, represented the transformational age itself. And also, in that sense, represented the eternal nature of the soul. Now, proceed so that everyone else may have some idea of what we are speaking of.
Thank you. I had a ring. I wear a ring, a gold ring that turns silver for 24 hours, and it was. I mean, I knew it turned silver. I was still trying to negate the experience, and anyway, I decided. I mean, I'm looking to see what I'm supposed to glean from that person. I bought a book on alchemy, and I can't. The book is not.
Well, alchemy itself, though you may find will perhaps interest you in some aspects, is not generally overall the point. The point is the ability of your reality to transform right now. All of a sudden, entirely and completely. Now, in general, what your silver will represent as a symbol is hidden ideas within you now presenting themselves to the quote-unquote surface of your consciousness. The gold in that sense will represent wisdom and will represent the eternal nature again of the soul. So what in that sense you have provided as an elaborate and exciting symbol is simply your willingness to begin to embrace what is presenting itself that was formerly hidden, and understand that nothing that you can possibly discover, this applies to you all, about yourself, nothing cannot be used in a positive way. Anything that you can discover can be used in a positive way, in service to yourself. And that understanding that there is nothing within you that you can discover that can overcome you, that can destroy you, will give you the liberty and the open willingness to begin to dive into these experiences of transformation and change rather than, shall we say, slink a step at a time. Does that make sense?
It does. Is there something specific with that incident with me?
Do you mean more specific than what we have just shared?
Yes. When you're talking about these hidden ideas, is this a specific hidden idea or is this a general thing? I know that I'm transforming from when we talked the last time as far as communicating and allowing myself to be more me in certain relationships. That is definitely happening. Is that what this is all representative of?
In a sense, you may understand it to fall under the blanket of all the events as the transformation of your life. The complete transformation, the literal recreation for what you did perceive did physically occur. And when it, shall we say, turned quote unquote back to gold, in that sense, literally was a new gold.
It's nice.
All right.
Thank you.
We thank you.
My second question, really isn't a question. In my business, there's a joint venture that's being negotiated right now with certain people. And I would just like to know from your point of view, if the people that we're aligning with in this joint venture, actually there's several joint ventures, but the people that are participating with us, are they people that are likely to do business with integrity and from the heart and be in alignment with what we want to do?
Now, it is our perception, again, that there are several instances, and some would, in that sense, express in that way. Others may not. So it will be our simple suggestion to trust your sense of discernment. Do you understand what I mean, applying that specifically to your situation?
Yes, I do.
Trust yourself.
And if I'm asking this question actually more from my sister's point of view, since she's more actively involved in the negotiation, it would be she who should be trusting.
Trusting her sense of discernment, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And to you. Shutting.
Elan.
Ace.
Last night on television, there was a program called Sightings.
Ace. That is, in a sense, one of, shall we say, very sneakily, the methods of dissemination of the information that our societies, that extraterrestrial societies, do in fact exist, and that your government knows about them. Now I say sneakily, for it is mixed in with a basket with many other things that are generally disbelieved in your society. So therefore, still leaving the option for, in that sense, not believing it. Do proceed, and thank you.
I'm very curious because it focused, I only saw 1 or 2 minutes of it, but it mentioned that there was a concentration of sightings over Mexico City.
Well, you saw the exact 1 or 2 moments that were relevant to you.
Good. I'm wondering, I'm going to be in Mexico City in a few weeks.
And there is a high degree of likelihood, if you go about your business, do not obsess or fixate upon it, that you will have a physical sighting, yes. And one of the reasons for the mass of physical visual sightings in that area is, shall we say, the interpretation and the attitude and the actions of the people indigenous to that area. For not only are they en masse willing to accept the possibility of our existence, but to some degree, so is their governmental structure, which is in that sense encouraging individuals to explore, encouraging individuals to inquire into the subject. An alternative model in that sense for the approach of your United States. Therefore, in that way, their internal validation results in the eyes to see what is all about your planet right now.
They tied this to the eclipse last year. I was in Mexico.
Ace, but that was simply because of the high degree of video cameras, shall we say, faced up at your sky, and inordinate in that sense amount compared to usual. And therefore, since that area is one of high activity, by in that sense having so many cameras focused into the sky, did result on that particular date in many, many individual, shall we say, videotapings of various craft.
Is the reason that they're concentrated there because there's a concentration of pyramids which focus and disseminate energy?
Well, as we have shared, it is more the idea of the indigenous population, for they are as concentrated in many other populated areas, but particular individuals in that areas will not create, out of mass agreement, the eyes to see them. There are far more craft than you may imagine, but you will only see them are you attuned to the vibration. And that vibration is not attuned to out of a sense of need, out of a sense of, I must see this so that I can then validate this reality. These realities are first validated inwardly on some level, for only can you express something externally if first it exists in consciousness. So therefore, they are far more willing to validate it first. And this is one of the reasons of the many that you are now finding yourself attracted to this area. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. It's really exciting.
Oh, yes. Us too.
Is your society one of the ones that is appearing then?
From time to time, but less in that area.
And I think that I will be at the pyramids at Teotihuacan on October 11th. The 11th and 12th, there will be lots of expressions of indigenous culture. There will be ceremonies with the sun and things.
There will be many reawakenings and rebirths.
Among the people who participate.
Including yourself.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thanks to you, for you have done it all. I have done nothing.
I'm really grateful for your interchange with me and the things that you say, teach me.
It is an honor for us as well to interact with you all, and I thank you as well.
Thanks.
Shutting.
Yeah.
Ace.
Hi, Elan.
Greetings.
I'd like to ask you about something my father's been creating and experiencing
All right.
over the past year. It's only happened a few times, and I've only just found out about it because he didn't want to talk about it. My mother would wake up, I suppose, in the early hours of the morning, and he'd be shaking violently all over, so much so that the whole bed was vibrating. And this would go on for about 20 minutes, and she couldn't wake him. And she'd be terrified, but she didn't call for help. She didn't ring for an ambulance or anything. And after about 20 minutes or so, he'd wake up feeling fine, having no recollection of anything, no dreams, and just get up as normal and go off to work and leave her a wreck. And they both asked me about it a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't quite sure what to say.
It is our perception that in that particular expression, your father is creating what you sometimes colloquially call a type of seizure, and it is the result of the channeling of energy inwardly as opposed to the willingness to express it outwardly. Now, there are many nuances and specifics of this, but for the purposes of, shall we say, covering the whole subject, that will do.
Okay.
The areas in which you will find he is hesitating, not moving, not doing, will be where it will benefit him the greatest to look at, decide why he is not moving, and then perhaps choose to express outwardly that particular assertive energy, thereby rechanneling that expression.
Okay.
It will make more sense to him.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I understand that. Thank you.
Is that all?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
At this timing, we will pause for a short break of 10 to 15 of your minutes of counting and resume contact at that timing. All right, I'll say, before we continue, allow me to say a few words. From our perspective, there is simply no such thing as idle curiosity. If you're curious about it, it has enough value to pursue from our perspective. Therefore, it is our suggestion, you don't have to, we will not force anyone to learn too much or have too much fun, but it is our suggestion that you understand that from our perspective, there is no such thing as a stupid question. Therefore, feel free, please, to share anything that is on your mind. Nothing limits you except your own definitions, your own willingness to assign that limitation. We are willing in general to discuss just about anything. And perhaps you can say from time to time, have. Therefore, we thank you once again for your willingness to even bring your physical body to this interaction, to, in that sense, exchange with us. For understand, though you perceive mostly that these communications are taking place, you are hearing them, to some degree you are seeing them visually. Because you do, in the complexity of how you create yourselves, shall we say, chop yourselves up into bits and portions of consciousness that you would sometimes call sub or unconscious. We, in fully expressing who we are, relate to each other, express, interchange, exchange with each other on all these levels at the same time. So, though you may not be asking questions, we are exchanging with you, and there is an exchange from our end, from our energy, if you will, to you. So if in that sense you wish to represent that exchange on a more blatant physical level, you are physical beings in a physical world. And it is our honor and joy to interact with you. So please, speak up. Thank you very much. Sharing. Yes.
The questions earlier this evening spoke in terms of fear and different subjects like that. You said to feel the fear, and I think what I tried to do was to imagine the fear of an interaction that obviously I have, and the only thing that came up was the question of deservability.
All right.
And in my process of transformation, I have looked at many aspects of myself and transformed them to find my power. Yet at the same time, I feel that I still have a fear of a power that is greater, that rests within.
All right. Well, what would be the result of this power expressed? What is the fear? Now remember, fear in and of itself, at least so that we can point you in a direction when tracing the belief that would result in fear, is believing that a reality you do not prefer is the most likely reality. So in the particular instance that you have so illustratively provided, what are you afraid of? What could happen? Play, as you say, worst case scenario. Will you explode?
No.
All right.
I think that it's a question of deservability and a question of responsibility, and trying to understand what is the belief system that locks in this feeling of a lack of deservability or this fear.
Well, it is simply the unwillingness to love yourself unconditionally, with no conditions. The imposition of the conditions in the first place is your doing. Now, not always consciously, but now that we are discussing it, it is consciously. For you now have the opportunity to change it. You are not judged from without, from outside of yourself. All that is, what you sometimes call God, is unconditional love itself. And judgment is not an expression of unconditional love. It is an expression of the imposition of conditions, which all that is does not do, no matter what you assign to all that is. It unconditionally loves you. So if you wish to cut through much of this, simply note from now on where you are placing conditions upon yourself. Oh, I have screwed up according to who I desire to be. Now, you are in a now moment when you do that, and you have a choice. Choice one, or perhaps the automatic choice, is, therefore I am such an idiot. But choice two is, all right, so what? So what? So perhaps I am labeling that I screwed up. Did I intend to do so? No. Do I intend to do so from now on? No. Well, then it actually serves me that I fell short of one of my standards, for it allows me to see that I no longer desire to do so. And using that creation, allowing it to be of service to me, tells me that next time a similar situation comes along, when I begin to perhaps perform the action indicative of the unpreferred belief, I will pause. I will stop. I will say, all right, almost did it again. Oops. But I remember, I love myself. Now, I will drum up the preferred me in my imagination and hand over this situation to the preferred me. How is that me handling it? Oh, look at that, holding its head up high. Approaching the individuals in an integrated way. That looks far more attractive than what I was about to do. Then when you choose the new preferred action, you are now acting unconditional. You are now acting as though you deserve because you say so. And you are the only one who can say anything about your reality. You need not in that sense place a burden upon yourself for the responsibility of the utilization of that power. For responsibility is simply your ability to respond from what is available. And it is automatic. You have the ability. You never create anything that you can't handle unless you define, interpret, have the attitude, and act like that is so. But the fact that you have created it, another way to look at it, is that I must be able to handle it. Look, I've created it. And there are no extraneous or pointless creations. Everything makes sense. So I can use the mere fact that I see how magnificent and large this is as a gauge for the fact that I must be able to handle it. Is this a useful alternative perspective?
Yes, it is. I recognize that I have the ability, but I still recognize that I do create limitations.
Well, you have the ability to deserve as well.
Yes. And to unconditionally love myself, which I felt I was doing in almost all aspects, but in that area.
Well, use the opportunity. Listen to the word opportunity of when you actually find yourself judging yourself as an opportunity by saying, well, look at that. Almost did it. But now I will not compound it by judging myself for almost having judged myself.
Having fun.
Ace. Now I will simply allow the fact that I almost judge myself to see that I am no longer willing to place conditions upon my self-love. I am exploring. I have a positive intention. Therefore, I need not place rigid conditions upon how I will express my positive intention. For if it is positive and unconditionally loving, it can only be of service to me. It can only be of service to other individuals. Therefore, there is no reason to even create a reason to not deserve anything. So allow yourself to be strayed. Allow your attention to be pointed at where you still do impose the conditions. When you find yourself doing so, say, oh, joy. Oh, thank you, thank you. Now that I see that I am doing this, I can choose something else. The part of becoming more conscious is being willing to pause and look at these issues before you act. Again, colloquially, look before you leap.
Thank you. I send my love to Bashar and to Elan.
Thank you. It is returned and received. Is that of assistance?
Yes.
Did that address the specific issue you are seeking?
Yes.
We thank you.
You.
Shutting.
Elan,
Ace. Greetings.
greetings. I'm trying to understand something.
All right. When will you simply understand it?
I'm not sure.
All right. Perhaps we can assist.
You speak of living in the moment and a moment of making a choice to make a positive choice or an old negative choice connected to possibly negatives in your past, or be free to make that choice in the moment and make it positive. How then can someone who's forced to live by taking certain drugs, and which drugs have a psychoactive effect that are very negative and weigh the mind down, still have the freedom to make that choice?
Well, can you be more specific? And before you go on, understand that to us, all situations, all circumstances, all manifestations are a reflection of consciousness itself, are a symbol of a message that you are delivering to yourself. Therefore, can you be a bit more specific so that we can decipher and apply this to the symbol that you are sharing?
Okay, I'm speaking about a situation that I live with. I take insulin since I was an infant. And that insulin, of course, I need to live.
Ace.
But that insulin has a very psychoactive effect that changes moment to moment, sometimes severe, in which my emotions get out of hand, my thought process, I can actually lose.
All right. Now, do understand that at some point in this process, you have assigned that that is why you are feeling that. And what we are sharing is that you can use all those emotions, even these seemingly random ones. For again, no matter when you feel something, it is always a response to a belief. So you can apply directly and literally what we have already shared in terms of using the emotions to trace back to the beliefs. And when you transform the beliefs and then act according to the new preferred beliefs, you then get the new emotions that correspond with the new belief. And this, in that sense, will then translate into your reality as all of a sudden no longer having the side effect of the drug. Using your creations with what is available to you now. And if you do use what you do have access to in the most positive way, you can then even physically transform the literal major symbol, but only by first working with, so to speak, what you already have in front of you, with the set of parameters that are in front of you. So first of all, our suggestion would be to take back your power in assigning that the emotions you are feeling are a response to the drug, and re-understanding, remembering that they are a response to a belief. If you believe that it is a response to the drug, you take it away from your ability to transform it. If you understand that it is a response to the belief, you put yourself squarely back into the driver's seat and put yourself in the position where you can now embrace these occurrences as opportunities to trace beliefs you no longer prefer. Does this make sense?
No.
All right.
Are you also saying that when the drug makes me unconscious, that it's a response to a belief system?
Well, ultimately, but we are not negating that what you are feeling is quote unquote quite real. But we were speaking more of the instances whereby you maintain consciousness and are ascribing the negative effect while conscious to the drug rather than using the negative effect as an opportunity to see what you must still believe.
Are you therefore saying that no drugs have feelings associated with by ingestion, but only by our response through our own system that we've created?
Well, ultimately, yes. But when you create that response, we understand we are not taking anything away from it, that it feels quite real, and it, in that sense, creates itself expressing as the drug is the cause and the feeling is the effect. We understand that it feels that way. What we are sharing is the underlying fundamental notion that it actually works the other way around. Yes. You create the effect of the drug, but only because you empower the symbol. Any effect that is created in your life is created by you. But if you empower a symbol and have the expectations that that symbol will have a particular reaction, then you can experience it to seem as though the power is within the symbol. But ultimately speaking, it is not. Does that at least make sense?
I understand what you're trying to tell me, but I don't believe it.
Well, all right. Very well. And thank you, for you cannot change any belief till you first own it, and you cannot, in that sense, change to a preferred belief until you own what you believe. So you are in the first step of the process, choosing in that sense not to believe what I am saying, which is fine. I am not attempting to convince you anyway. I am simply sharing something which is as true as what you are saying, and therefore provides an alternative, so at least you have the choice to approach it another way. Would you like to believe what I am saying?
I definitely would like to believe it.
Well, all right. Then that is a start. You have now identified your limiting belief and can have joy that you have identified it, for as I have shared, you cannot change it till you own it. But at the same time, you know what you prefer to believe. So therefore, utilizing the tools provided at the beginning of this interaction, you have everything you need to move on. And do you at least conceptually understand what I am saying?
I understand, but I don't believe.
All right. If you wish to toy, to play around with the idea, simply from what we have shared earlier, incorporate creating in your imagination, when you have some time, the preferred you. Really see in your mind's eye the you say you prefer to be. See it in your mind's eye until you feel it. You will see what I mean. You will feel it. And then begin to hand situations over to that preferred you. Watch the difference. Perform the new, different actions which are representative of your preference and watch what happens. It is a no-risk guarantee. And because your imagination is part of you, you will always have the ability to create this referential, preferential you. You don't need me. You don't need anyone but yourself. It is an automatic tool. It is tuned to you. It is very specific to you. So if you wish to believe what I am saying, begin to look at how a person who believes it would act in whatever specific ways that you can provide. And one thing is for absolute certain. That you see with the preferred beliefs will handle every single thing differently than you are handling it. So at least you will have the model, the template, again, the blueprint for another option. Is that usable?
I've attempted to see my ideal self and change, but I have always found that under the influence of the drug, I fall back into a pattern that is out of my control.
Use what you are labeling to be the influence. When you feel something in a given moment, I assume you're not feeling it now. Therefore, right now you can do nothing about it, and it does not apply to right now. But when that right now moment is feeling that way, then ask yourself, right now, from what is happening right here, with no other extraneous baggage, what must I believe to feel this way? And watch what happens. You will be fascinated. And that is the beginning of the process. The weeding out of the beliefs you no longer prefer, using the windows to those beliefs, your negative emotions.
Okay.
Is it at least sensible enough to apply?
Yes, it's that.
All right. If in that sense you wish to continue this interaction, please check in again. It is our joy to interact with you. And again, we remind you, you are doing nothing wrong. You are flawlessly getting the results of your creatorhood. But now you are considering that perhaps you wish to create anew. You wish to create something different. That is the first step to waking up to the fact that you can. Therefore, you have learned much this evening. Whether or not you will choose to apply it will always be up to you. But it has been bequeathed to you in its simplicity so that it is doable rather than nice philosophy. Therefore, your results from it will depend on your willingness to apply it. But again, I cannot prove anything to you. You can prove it to yourself 100% if you decide to. Perhaps you can. All right. Understand that you are now likened to your Felix the cat and now have a new trick in your bag.
Thank you.
And to you. Shedding.
Elan,
Ace, female, then back there.
greetings.
And to you.
I'd like to thank you first for your sharing in the beginning of the interaction. I was experiencing negative emotions, and it was a very grounding experience to have you elucidate on it as I was experiencing it.
And what did you find you believed?
That I need external validation on a certain level in order to feel self-worth, which actually is contradictory anyway.
Well, do understand the other contradiction is once you get external validation, you have already internally validated it. So therefore, you can utilize that external validation as proof that you already contain the self-validity. Oh, joy.
Right.
You can sound a little bit more excited about it than that.
I've been doing a lot of stuff recently, following my excitement, and kind of just wanted to share a little bit of it. I've taken 2 weeks off from my job, which was real exciting. And when I go back on Wednesday, I'm going to give them 2 weeks notice, which I'm really excited about.
All right. Now you sound like it.
Yeah. I've been moving in towards my excitement, which is flying. And I've learned a lot about timing and trusting timing and not putting as many expectations on when a particular thing is going to occur. When I initially started flying again, I had intended, it was my expectation to be recertified as a flight instructor by the end of August. And as that time came and went, that didn't occur. And I looked at it and I said, well, okay, it's not like I've screwed up. This is something that...
Now, had you defined that you had, to use your term, screwed up, you would have felt the results of seeming to have screwed up. So why you have not then stopped yourself in your tracks is your willingness to understand that you did not screw up, that what you were perhaps about to label an interruption was actually the straightest part of the path.
Absolutely. Because what I found was that instead of looking at it as trying real quick to find another job and another means of income, I find that I'm doing it simply because I enjoy it. And it really is an immense source of joy for me. And it is leading in directions that will be a lot better in the long run than being a flight instructor. It's a shorter line to getting to where I want to be.
Ice. But there is the aspect of giving yourself the opportunity to trust the timing. For there is a distinction between expectation and expectancy. Expectation is, I, in a sense, expect this particular thing to happen, and I expect that it will only come in this particular way, this particular form. It is a rigidizing which does not take into consideration the many other ways that it may more easily come about. Expectancy is simply the knowledge, this is what I desire, therefore I can expect that it will happen. Now, I will be very loose in how I accept that, and I will allow it to deliver itself in the path of least resistance rather than assuming that I know the fastest way. That open attitude and trust in that timing accelerates the very timing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that was part of what I needed to experience was that real trust in timing, and opportunities are just popping up right and left. And it's really neat.
All
right. When we met in private session, though, getting back to the job that I'm about to let go of, we did talk about it at that time. And you had mentioned that instead of, in terms of being able to let it go, as opposed to, fighting it or running away from something.
Now, simply to clarify, we did not in that sense suggest that this individual quit their job. But the idea is in discussing what excited her, it became apparent to her that it was not the job. Now, it is not our policy to interfere with the comings and goings of your daily reality, but simply individuals will find many things in reflecting with us. And that was her particular conclusion. Do proceed.
Right. Although I do want to add that I did come up with a number of ways that it had served me.
Oh, thank you.
which actually, as we talked about, enables me to let it go now. But one of the things that you had also mentioned was not throwing everything to the wind and not breaking agreements with individuals. And I did reflect quite a bit on that. And at the time, I think that my interpretation was that it was agreements where I work. But having looked at that, I don't find agreements there.
Now, we simply meant generally speaking, for when we speak about choosing from what's available with your excitement, we, in that sense, always include to do so with integrity, and not so much meaning the general moralistic version of integrity, but simply the knowledge of the integration of all things and your connection with it. Everything is one event. Therefore, you understand everything is integrated and then would act a certain way. If you, in that sense, are interacting with other individuals and making agreements, were you to truly feel as one integrated whole, one of the expressions or actions that prove that in that sense is your willingness to abide by the agreements. But we also again shared that part and parcel of the nature of agreements is from your end your willingness, if you do not any longer wish to fulfill the agreement, to open up a dialogue and perhaps renegotiate the agreement. But simply what we were suggesting is not making a unilateral decision which you would feel in your standards was out of your own integrity.
Okay. Okay.
Is that all?
No. We had also talked before about my relationship with my brother, and you had mentioned that as I integrate more of myself, that many of the symbols in my life will return home, so to speak. An interesting situation has come up now within my family. My parents have been separated and physically separated by quite a bit of distance for about 6.5 years now. And quite suddenly, my father now wants to return home. And for the most part, my brother and sister and I consider this, although it has some effects on us, an issue between our parents, and it's something that they need to resolve with themselves.
All right.
I also see it from the perspective that it's a real big change for my father to even admit that he needs a family. And I think he's got a lot of personal issues and things that he's going to need to look at.
To a large degree, yes.
Yes.
It will have to do with what you sometimes call issues of self-deservability and issues of what you sometimes colloquially call security.
Yes. Yes. I have a question, and that is, aside from sharing where I can, things that I've found that you've shared with us that have been beneficial to me, and being supportive within, maintaining my own integrity, but being as supportive as I can of everyone else in the family in the situation. Is there anything that you can share with me that could also assist?
Well, to some degree, we have discussed before the following idea, but it will come in quite helpful in this instance. Individuals in your society, of the many fascinating tendencies that you create, one of them will be to suppose that you are not in and of yourself complete, and that should you attract something external, perhaps a symbol, but in general a person, that would then make you complete. The paradox in this thinking is that if you come from a foundation of feeling incomplete and attract a relationship, you can never truly escape the fact that you truly feel incomplete. And anything that you do attract ultimately only can reflect back to you those original feelings of incompleteness. Hence the, shall we say, pandemonium many times in the relationships in your society. For you are looking for your own validation in someone else, which you can never find.
Mhm.
Therefore, your willingness to begin to look at unconditional self-love and begin to remove the conditions to your willingness to love yourself will bolster and nurture your deservability and feelings of self-completion. For when you fully, unconditionally love yourself, you automatically feel complete. Then everything you attract is a reflection of that completeness. Then you have, rather than 50-50, 100% relationships, which then allow each other to still maintain that individuality, but yet enhance many of the common excitements. Therefore, if you share this notion with him in a loving way, from the perspective of already being willing to embody it yourself as a living example, this may assist.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. On another subject, I also watched the program Sightings last night, and the second segment of the program was about the UFOs. The first segment was about hauntings in Alcatraz prison. And you've spoken several times about what happens when people translate and their experience in their, and I'm wondering how, I don't necessarily doubt that hauntings occur, but how does that happen when, does it sometimes take people 50 of our years to realize that they're dead and they can let go of
Well,
this
to
stuff?
some degree, there may also be an overwhelming, shall we say, gravitational, so to speak, effect of that concentrated amount of negativity, which in and of itself is an expression of limitation and separation itself. The limited and separative viewpoint is, in that sense, not the acknowledgement of your totality and eternal nature. So therefore, when you come from that perspective, you will in general very strongly identify yourself as a body. Sometimes you say your soul exists within that body. But our particular perspective is that that is a bit backward, that your body exists within your consciousness itself. But when there is such a strong negative identification with the body, in a sense you can say it can leave, colloquially speaking, a type of footprint. And in that sense, that was what was being sensed in that particular arrangement of psychic attunement.
Okay.
Is that of assistance?
Yeah, I don't know that I understand completely, but it makes a certain amount of sense, I guess.
All right. Is there something else you wish to ask to clarify a bit further?
Does this stuff ever go away?
Well, in a sense, from one perspective, it already is. And it is more the footprint that was being perceived than the individuals, quote unquote, hanging around. For the individuals themselves are now, in that sense, more than only just that. So it is literally the perception of the footprint, colloquially speaking, rather than the direct present state of the entities.
Okay. So then the psychic who is doing this stuff is somebody who then is like attuned to see those footprints.
In a sense, yes. In other now moments that intersect with the perceived now moment.
Okay.
With the place, the proximity, as, shall we say, the common denominator.
But that wouldn't necessarily mean that if I went to Alcatraz that I would feel the same things.
Perhaps you would not.
Okay.
Now, there are different manifestations of what you would sometimes call, all right, to use your terminology, hauntings. But in this particular case, that would be our most accurate perception.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. We thank you.
Thank you. One other thing.
Oh, all right.
I had a dream the night of July the 25th.
Oh, not you too.
Oh yes, me too. Actually, several dreams that night, but the one I wanted to share and maybe have you comment on.
Maybe.
I was flying and
With or without a vessel?
With.
Oh, all right.
It's dispensed with them, but this one was with.
All right.
And I was getting a ride from somebody. It took me a little while in the dream to realize that I wasn't in an airplane. I realized that when I was looking down and the ground wasn't moving. We flew over the house of an ex-boyfriend of mine, and we were kind of like hovering over the house, and I was looking down at it, and I noticed that there had been a new driveway cut leading up to the house from a different direction. And within the dream, this person, a woman, as I perceived it, who was treating me to this ride, was his new girlfriend, and which was a totally okay situation for me. And at one point, she turned and looked at me, and I thought, oh gosh, I didn't know John's girlfriend was Oriental. And I was relating this dream to someone else the next day, and I thought, oh, geez, not Oriental, slanted eyes, upturned eyes.
Well, the idea is that that was not necessarily his literal girlfriend.
Right.
There was the issue, shall we say, that you were pondering while in one situation of, shall we say, running through how you felt about how things have ended up, and you, in a sense, felt resolved. But there was a bit of a confusion and a superimposition. But do understand that you are now getting the accurate interpretation.
Which is?
Well, do proceed.
Well, we've talked before about upturned eyes, and was that some?
Is there really any big mystery here?
No, there's not.
You had a little ride.
Right.
Did you enjoy it?
It was great.
We thank you.
Thank you. Is it someone who's been identified in any of these interactions?
Ace.
Who?
Now, I did begin by saying, maybe. This is where I shall end. But do trust.
Okay.
And if you wish in that sense, ask her.
Have
all
I
right.
had contact with her before?
You tell me.
All right.
Are you not going to tell me?
Maybe.
Oh, all right. As you say, turn about.
No, it wasn't the same feeling, actually. It felt different.
This was a new interaction.
Okay.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Back there, female. Ace.
Hi.
Greetings.
I have a question first for my sister. Her husband and two of his family members were struck by lightning the day of his father's funeral, and so she wanted me to ask you about
Well, what is there to ask?
what the significance of that was for them.
In a sense, it was a transformational symbol at a transformational occasion.
And he had 2 seizures.
In a sense, you may understand that he has rewired himself.
He is an epileptic, but he usually doesn't have seizures.
Ace. And you may find, although there may be a slight increase at first, that they will cease altogether.
He's taking medicine for that. For the epilepsy. He won't have to take that medicine. It's a thing.
Well, that will be up to him. That is one possibility. But what may be of assistance to him as a meditational aid will be what you sometimes call your infinity symbol. Your figure 8 on its side. Well, all right. Was a simple suggestion.
No, thank you. My time at the summer cottage is almost over. 2 weeks to find a place, and I've been looking for a couple months for a cottage.
Well, you do tend to cut these things quite close. It is called walking the razor's edge.
My question now is, I've been very, very positive all along that I would find a great place.
But what?
But now that I have 2 weeks left, I'm wondering.
Oh, not so positive now, eh? Allowing yourself the opportunity to see that you still have a line. That is all. If you are willing to enter in zeal, in zest, in joy the next 2 weeks with the expectancy that you know what you're doing, you will facilitate the creation of the new abode rather than slow it down.
Well, I still feel that way. I still feel there's this wonderful place that I'm going to find. But every once in a while, I think, well, gee, maybe I'm supposed to be more flexible. Maybe I should look at other things that I don't necessarily.
Well, by all means, go right ahead.
Well, I really don't want to.
Well, why not?
Well, do you think I'm going to find a cottage?
I know you will find something.
I know that.
But what I am asking is, why not?
Why not? What? Why not find a cottage? Is that what you're saying?
Look at other possibilities.
I don't want to live in Black Rock.
All right. Well,
I don't want anything.
it is not settling for less that we are speaking of, but at least viewing all the possibilities. And also, we mean the possibilities of ideas within you that come up, for instance, in this example. All of a sudden, I am so trusting, but now that I am down to the 2 weeks, well, I'm not so trusting, which means you weren't so trusting to begin with. Therefore, realign and reassign.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I have done nothing. Will that do?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Shedding. Ace.
I'd like to hello first.
Greetings.
I have a stomach condition that I came back from Europe with that I thought was caused by something I had perhaps eaten. And I've done everything holistically possible to eliminate it, but I don't quite know what the cause is.
How long has this been occurring?
5 days. And I also have it's 2 questions in one. I have a decision to make in a relationship and a living place. I currently live in a house that I love and enjoy my life, the work that I do in this area. And it would require a move to a place I'd like to live, but I have hesitation. Can you tell me anything about either?
Well, first of all, you may simply utilize what you have already created and enjoyed as a standard that you will not settle for anything less than. Therefore, you can only go to something greater in that sense, if you set it up that way. One moment. Do you feel you are running from something, or are you walking toward something that you desire?
Toward desire.
All right. Do you, in that sense, consume, shall we say, several glasses a day of what you call water? I will take that as a no.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Do you drink water? Lots of water.
As a matter of fact, I made a conscious effort just today to drink even more water than normally.
It is our suggestion that you continue to do that for at least the next 3 to 5 of your days. But also begin to look at ideas that you are exploring, that you, in that sense, wish to incorporate into your being, but as an analogy, are having difficulty digesting.
I along with the water consumption for my physical being, I also have a lot of dreams about water. The place in my dreams is as special to me as the one that I'm in. So I feel positive about it. But then there's I think it's the relationship that I have with this person.
This is why we asked if there is something that you are running from.
And it's more like standing still and with my fingers in my ears.
Do you feel that this relationship is representative of the reflection of who you now define yourself to be?
Not entirely, no.
All right. How then does it serve you?
Well, there's a lot of special growth, but I'm not quite sure what isn't growing. I can see what grows in it, but there's something in the interaction with this person that...
Did this person accompany you on your trip?
Yes.
All right. It is our perception that very strongly part and parcel of what you are experiencing in terms of the stomach condition is also symbolically a result of your hesitation and indecisiveness in this particular issue.
I feel that too.
Therefore, what will you do?
No, I'm asking you.
Well, we can only simply suggest that you honor your true self, that you honor what your heart says to you, that you understand that you are already complete, that you cannot be anything but complete unless you change the rules. So therefore, perhaps again, you are providing yourself a crossroads expression of now being willing to release the things which are no longer representative of who you choose to be, thereby making room, creating a void, perhaps you can say, that will then attract and be filled with a new symbol, representative and supportive and reinforcing of who you now say you desire to be. But it will require from your end the decision, the lack of sitting upon the fence, and then the actions that are reflective of the decision either way. And we are not suggesting any particular course of action, simply that making a decision and acting upon it, no matter which direction that you wish to go, will free up, shall we say, the frozen state, so to speak, of your energy due to this paralysis.
When I think about it too.
All right. Well, perhaps we can boil it down to drink more water and get off the fence. But you already know this.
I know why I had to drink more water today.
All right. It will aid with your facilitation of your physical body and will allow for a symbolic cleansing, so to speak.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we thank you. And do enjoy yourself. For no matter what you decide, you can proceed in love and light. You can proceed with playfulness, with joy, with the willingness to express who you are. And in response, the universe then provides the support for you to continue to be who you say you wish you desire to be. The universe is always ultimately supportive. Whatever you define, whatever you choose to buy into, whether it's consciously or unconsciously to believe, the universe will support that. All belief systems have built within them a self-sustaining, self-perpetuating system of logic and system of evidence. This is why no matter what you ever believe, you will then see evidence that that is a truth. Not the truth, a truth. Literally, believing is seeing. And therefore, when you choose to change a belief according to preference and act that way, you would not accept the old evidence of the old belief. For if you truly believe the new belief, you would be looking for new evidence and not accept a reflective symbol from the old belief as evidence that the new belief is not working. If you do, you in general neutralize the change and draw back the new belief, for you are using the old belief, for you are using that old belief as validation. But if you, in that sense, choose to act with the new belief and move with the new belief and do not accept anything as evidence of anything but the new belief, you then create the circumstances which literally bring that physical evidence of the new belief, and cannot then get from the universe anything but the new support for the new belief, just as you have had the old support. And the old support from the universe can be quite complex and can take the form of the evidence you do not prefer. Does that make sense? Therefore, go forth and have a good time. If you lighten up just a bit, you will be enlightened and you will walk with that particular orientation. We thank you. There will be but a few moments left to this interaction. Shedding. Ice.
First of all, I'd like to say hello.
Greetings.
Nice to meet you.
Well, in a sense, we have met before.
Yes. And thank you for your introduction. It validated my growth.
Well, thank you for doing the validating and using me as an excuse.
Here's my reflection. My husband has two particular items that he treasures very much. One is an antique motorcycle and one's an antique car.
All right.
And we want to buy a house now. And the only way to do that is to sell this particular antique motorcycle.
Well, if you say so,
Right.
then you are rigidly assigning that that is the only way. But assuming that you have done so, do proceed.
Right. Well, the motorcycle is now in transaction, and he's going through quite a hard time in letting this go.
All right. Well, in a sense, it can have the positive symbolic representation of being willing to let go of the past literally. But it is up to him.
I don't think. Well, what I'm asking is, I'm trying to be supportive of his transaction and kind of to express, well, look at what we can have or what we're actually exchanging for. But I don't know if I'm reaching. Is there anything I can? The whole thing with the belief system, I guess, is coming in here because we're believing that this is the only way that we're going to get a house because we don't have a house to sell to get another house.
All right. Well, again, that is one way to do it, but you can also assume that because he attracted the symbol in the first place, that he is, shall we say, practiced at attracting those types of symbols. And should he wish to put it out there, there would be the possibility of transforming your situation, obtaining your house, so to speak, and then getting either that or a different type of antique motorcycle once again.
Mm-hmm.
So he need not close that door by any means. Was it that particular motorcycle
that he particularly loves?
Yes.
I think it's mostly because he attracted that particular one into his life.
Well, he will attract the next one as well.
They just don't come at the price of the original.
Well, all right. But you are putting on the glasses through which you will see when you say that.
Mm-hmm.
Simply use what he, in that sense, enjoyed about that symbol as a standard that he will refuse to not fall again under next time.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is lost, only changing hands for a while.
Right.
Is there something else?
No.
Oh, we thank you. Shutting.
Elan,
Ace.
I'd like to ask you a couple questions about death.
All right.
I heard you say in another session that it was possible for us to communicate with people who have died, and I wondered...
Well, to some degree, depending upon what you might colloquially call their status, yes.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by their status.
Well, in general, when you quote-unquote contact spirit life in the way you are meaning, that is a particular individual who has transformed, as you say, died, and is still in the, shall we say, spirit state in between lives. Now, in that sense, when they then choose to reincarnate, should they choose to, it is still possible to get in touch with an aspect of them, but it will be not as direct a communication. It will be more of a communication with the overall higher self that is now reincarnated and expressing itself, colloquially speaking, as another individual. Now, we understand that this gets confusing, so this may not have translated adequately. Do proceed.
Well, I just wondered if you could be more specific about how one communicates with people.
Well, in general, understand, they are very busy on that end. And not to be flippant, do not mean this derogatorily, but they have better things to do than to hang around while other individuals call them up. So you may understand that in general, the form that their communication will take with you will not be generally what you consider to be a voice or a direct communication or a nighttime dream, though sometimes that will occur. In general, it will be in the form of a loving nudge, so that perhaps your attention will be strayed to something. Something perhaps you see lying around, something outside, a flower, a scent, a newspaper article, a book, or something that you will distinctly, while you are seeing it, be thinking of them. In general, that is the methodology for their communications with you, for that is the path of least resistance.
And one other thing, could you also perhaps explain a little bit, why is it that if death is a transition, why are some deaths so horrible? Why are they?
Well, it will depend upon the belief systems of the individuals while they were alive and what it is they have chosen to experience. It is, shall we say, ever changing and will be as specific as there are individuals. Was there a specific incident that you wish to ask about?
No.
In general, individuals will create, believing that they exist within a reality that happens to them, particular evidences of this external reality happening to them. And it can take the form of a seeming death that happens to them, quote unquote, by mistake. But once they have transformed and take a step back, they can always see how even that symbol served them. And how, even though they have, in that sense, created something that they may have at the time believed to be the most horrible thing that they could not escape from, that they, in a sense, are still as spirit existing and understand that they are the reality, that nothing happened to them, and the proof is they are still there, so to speak. Does this make sense?
Somewhat.
All right. Is there another question?
No, thank you.
We thank you. Shutting. Ace.
Quick question. I've been reading a book about the Zeta Reticuli. They were talking about hybrids that they were breeding with their own and the people of Earth. Is this you?
Our society is the product of such hybridization, but we are not the only product of that hybridization. Though at this point we are beginning to, shall we say, approach a subject that we cannot discuss.
That's all I wanted.
Oh, thank you. And lastly, over there.
Elan,
Ace.
this is another health question. We've had several this evening.
All right.
In terms of thinking of a health situation, and I'll say it specifically, I've had joint pain in some of my index fingers, and for a short while, my feet were swollen in the morning, and so it was hard to walk. And using the tools that you gave us earlier, what I would do is feel the pain of these joints, or say, what do my fingers, for example, mean to me, and what is this trying to tell me?
That is one approach and will illuminate many things. But understand that pain itself is the product of resistance causing a friction, resistance to your natural ecstasy, resistance in the form of stiffness to, shall we say, your willingness to move fluidly and continuously through your reality. So that as well. Therefore, get shaking.
This is rigidity then, and this is showing me in my fingers my rigidity and that resistance to these many changes that in my life that are happening so quickly.
Well, to some degree, now understand that you are diving into some of the changes, and we are not discussing that. We are discussing the changes that you are, shall we say, hesitant about. This is an entire commitment that you are making to transform your life, and will always, in that sense, indicate to you where you are not fully expressing it. Now, it is not that you need to create it as pain, but that is one way that societally you do so.
You know, each time I ask this type of question and I try to follow you during it, and I know that it makes more sense to the other people who are sitting and listening in my mind, or something goes kind of blank and I don't quite get what you're saying to me.
Which is all right. We request when that does occur that you simply ask for clarification and be as specific as possible with your request.
Okay. So these fingers hurting and they're stiff in the morning and they don't bend.
All right.
And then
Stop.
Okay.
What are you resisting within yourself right now? Are you feeling the stiffness right now?
No.
All right. When you feel it, for your point of power is the now, and if you are not feeling it, it is, in this sense at least, irrelevant to this now moment. But while you are feeling it, ask yourself, what am I resisting? And look at the parameters in place at that now moment. It will make sense in the context of that now moment when you remove again the excess baggage. That would be the simplest, most concise place to start.
All right.
Then you can also look at as well what the symbol of your fingers represent and what in that sense them not being able to function to the degree that you wish forces you to do. Look at what you are forcing yourself to do. And then be willing to perhaps do that thing without needing to create a symbol to force yourself. And you will no longer then need the symbol and then transform it.
So therefore, when this hurts in the morning, which is primarily when it does, this is my resistance to going forward, and probably with these new changes in my life, my resistance to going into the new day.
Well, to some degree, but again, be more specific. You are choosing to create a generality, and we are saying that the now moment is very specific.
Okay, so tomorrow morning, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to see maybe if this happens tomorrow morning.
If it even does. Perhaps since we have had this conversation, it no longer will.
I will see. This is exciting.
Oh, it can be. And we wish in that sense that should the opportunity present itself, that you check back with us so that we can revel together.
Okay. Then I have a real quick question.
All right.
This relates to...
Real quick.
This is very quick.
Oh, time's up.
Yes or no? Oh gosh, maybe that's a little too fast.
All right. Do proceed. Just having some fun.
I might.
Oh, no. Never.
The Pleiades. Is our sun part of the Pleiades system?
No.
It is not.
There is a relationship of your system to that system. And perhaps from someone's perspective out there, it is considered a, shall we say, similar constellation. But in the way that you mean from your point of view, no.
In Mexico, they pay attention to the Pleiades and they base the calendar on it. And some of the Maya, for example, say that we are part of that system.
Well, that is because the, shall we say, societies that exist within that system have common ancestral roots with your own society.
and more than close because for example, Maya is saying that that relationship is closer with them.
Well, they, in a sense, had interacted physically with those beings.
I think that's it, unless there's any juicy comments you want to make further.
Juicy. All right. Do not drink upon my planet very often. Therefore, we thank you for the opportunity. And we'll simply say, at this timing, allow me to express my unconditional love and appreciation for your willingness individually and collectively to share with our society. Understand that you are no less, from our perspective, than a direct ambassador from your civilization. And allow me then to act as ambassadors for my respective civilizations. This is, shall we say, the cutting edge. It is, shall we say, perhaps colloquially speaking, not to plagiarize, the final frontier itself. For you may understand that the day is approaching whereby we as a society, as many societies and your society, will meet face to face. You will notice, particularly now, there to be slowly and perhaps sometimes dribbling out a bit more quickly, much information that your government and that many individuals have about our collective existence. Now is the only time there is. Now is the time for the beginning of the opening of our civilizations, should your civilization en masse choose to interact with us. Now is the only time there is. Now is your point of power. It is always right now, even right now. Therefore, you can always consciously create. You can always act right now and always determine and consciously decide the foundation for those actions. It is up to you. You are the assigners of meaning. And the meaning you assign determines the effect you get out. No one will force you to believe anything. It is always entirely up to you. But that now moment is omnipresent, ever present, and is your constant direct connection to all that is, direct connection to the rest of your totality. It is your direct point of power. We thank you for your expression of this succession, so to speak, of now moments in sharing with us and our civilization, and bid you a most fond and loving good day.